Ezra Levant is my name. I am the Rebel Commander here at Rebel News. And of course, most of our videos are done in English. We've done some en Espanol, and we've even done one video in Yiddish, the old Jewish language. But I'm delighted to say that over the last year, we have had videos en français, and we have had a reporter based in Quebec who does videos in both English and French, telling the rest of the country what's cooking in La Belle Province, and also giving Quebecers themselves another take on things, because that media party is even more monotonous than the one in the whole of Canada. And so I am delighted tonight to present to you our live stream featuring the Quebec provincial election. Did you even know one was going on? Well, you would if you follow Rebel News, because Alexa and Guillaume Roy, who also works with us in Quebec, have been covering it. Of course, they cover other things too of universal interest, including the lockdowns and the pandemic and freedom of speech and things like that. But tonight, for probably the next 2 hours, we are going to cover the Quebec election. I'll be here in our world headquarters in Toronto, and Alexa will be at the headquarters of the surging, freedom-oriented party, led by Eric Duhem. The name of the party is the Quebec Conservative Party, but it's really not related in any way to the Conservative Party of Canada run by Pierre Poilievre. I'm sure they do have some overlap of ideas and philosophy, but Eric Duhem is rather a unique political figure, and I think he's actually the most interesting politician in all of Canada. His English is practically perfect. Believe it or not, I met him almost 30 years ago. Not quite 30 years ago, but I was certainly in my 20s when I went to Parliament as the assistant to the leader of the Reform Party, Preston Manning. I was just a young kid. And Eric, I met him in Parliament. He was the same position, the assistant to the leader of the Bloc Québécois, named Gilles Duceppe, if you remember that name. And what was interesting about Eric is he was not a leftist, as most Bloc Québécois were. And of course, he had a lot of Quebec pride, but that didn't necessarily mean he wanted to split away from Canada, although I'll let him explain his own nuanced position. But I found an incredibly hardworking, very bright, excellent communicator. And indeed, he went on to a very successful career in talk radio in Quebec City. And I should tell you, and I say this as someone born and raised in Calgary, the most freedom-oriented talk radio in all of Canada is not Calgary, not by a long shot, not anywhere in Edmonton or the West. It is in Quebec City. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but a couple of decades ago, the most freedom-oriented radio station in the country, called Schwa FM, was so rambunctious that the government, the CRTC, ordered that its license be revoked. And 50,000 Quebecers marched on Parliament Hill, and the government blinked. I mean, the idea that 50,000 people would care so much about a radio station is deeply heartwarming to me. And that they would march and get the government to blink. And I don't know if you know this, but one of the radio hosts of Schwa FM ran for Parliament as an independent. His name was Andre Arthur. And he won. Seriously, how many times do independent candidates win? Is it 1 in 1,000 times? You know, if you have 338 candidates, I mean, I would say it's only once every election or two. Andre Arthur ran and won. And I tell you that to let you know that there is a side to Quebec that we don't know about in English Canada, because, well, you think the media party is going to tell you the story I just told you? You think they're going to admit that there are freedom-loving Quebecers? One of the things that I've really appreciated about Alexa Lavoie's work with Rebel News is she has shown us the strong libertarian streak in that province, starting, I don't know if you followed her, I'm sure you did, that there were so many Quebec truckers in the convoy. Makes sense, right? I mean, Ottawa is just across the river from the province of Quebec, but there was a very strong Quebec presence there, and Alexa was able to talk to them in their own language. I've learned a lot about Quebec from Alexa, and I'm sure many of our Anglo viewers have as well. Let me show you just a sample of Alexa's work. I see in the background that we're looking at some great video she did from the campaign trail. Efron, I'd like you or Olivia to select a video of Alexa on the scene. And we won't necessarily play the whole thing, but I just want to give people a taste of our coverage of the Quebec election. This is Alexa Lavoie, our Quebec-based correspondent. Here, take a look. Oh, we just need one more second. We're getting it ready. She's done a great job, and so is Guillaume. And the thing is, we trust them. Now, of course, they talk about much more than just the Quebec election. I mean, oh, we're good to go. Ready? Here, take a look. I'll let you see for yourself. Oh, we need the audio. We'll get that going. But you can see the back of the bus, the big decal bus.
The press conference was about
the motto is
transition
Libre
of the
chez
new
nous. That's a
immigrant
takeoff
in
on Maître chez nous, which is
I had
masters
the
of our own
chance
house.
to as well.
Eric's slogan for the Quebec Party is Free Our House, Libre chez nous. Rewind that and let's play that from the beginning. I was talking over it. Let's show you this report from Alexa.
Finish. We are at the 17 days of the election campaign. So the press conference was about the francization of the new immigrant in Quebec. I had the chance to as well ask questions to Mr. Éric Duhaime, but as well to two of his candidates for different ridings. Let's check it out. Alexa Lavoie pour Urban News.
Bonjour.
Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de l'immigration, mais l'immigration illégale. Si la tendance se maintient, d'ici la fin de l'année, on va avoir plus que 40 000 personnes qui vont avoir passé ce chemin-là, ce qui représente une augmentation de 217 % depuis 2017. Ça vient causer un énorme problème sur le système et ces gens-là sont laissés souvent à eux-mêmes dû au fait qu'ils sont en attente de leur procès. Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire avec ce problème-là, puisque le fédéral semble ne pas vouloir bouger avec ça?
C'est une excellente question, puis c'est vrai qu'on en parle trop peu d'immigration illégale, puis on parle de franciser nos immigrants, puis là, vous voyez, c'est toute la problématique, là, parce que s'il rentre 40 000 immigrants, effectivement, illégalement, vous comprenez que la francisation des immigrants, on n'aura pas les ressources, puis on n'aura pas le monde pour s'assurer de franciser tout ce monde-là. Si en plus, puis on a eu toute la guerre aussi, le débat sur les chiffres, savoir si c'était 40, 50, 60, 80 000, combien on en fait entrer par année. Peu importe le chiffre qu'on fait, si en plus on en ajoute 20, 30, 40 000 de façon illégale, ces chiffres-là sont complètement faussés. Donc, il faut s'attarder à cette immigration illégale-là. Moi, je ne comprends toujours pas comment ça se fait que ça fait des années que ça traîne, qu'on se traîne les pieds, comment c'est qu'il n'y a pas d'actions concrètes qui sont prises. M. Legault doit sonner le gouvernement fédéral de faire quelque chose. L'écrasante majorité de la population québécoise est outrée de voir entrer autant d'illégaux, notamment au chemin Roxham. Il faut vraiment que ça bouge. Là. Il y a un manque de leadership et à Ottawa et à Québec sur cet enjeu-là. Ça fait quelques années que ça dure. Tout le monde le sait et personne ne bouge. C'est totalement inacceptable. Ça vient miner l'ensemble des politiques d'immigration du Québec. Ça vient miner la confiance que la population a envers l'immigration. Ça vient miner les efforts de francisation des nouveaux arrivants. Il est vraiment temps qu'il y ait des actions concrètes qui soient prises à cet égard.
Et sur ce nombre de personnes-là, 316 personnes ont leur origine pas capturée. Donc, dans le fond, on ne sait pas de où ils proviennent. Pensez-vous que ça peut représenter vraiment une menace au niveau du Québec?
Bien là, je n'irai pas là. M. Legault a associé menace et immigration récemment. Là, je n'ai pas pensé que c'était l'idée du siècle. Mais c'est certain que ça pose un enjeu de sécurité, par exemple. Parce que plus il y a des migrants illégaux qui rentrent, il faut s'assurer, évidemment, que c'est des antécédents de ces gens-là. Et plus il y en a, plus ça devient difficile. Donc, c'est une complexité, puis c'est une raison supplémentaire là, de fermer le robinet et de cesser là, cette immigration illégale qui ne cesse de croître au chemin Roxham.
Ma dernière question, c'est vraiment rapide. On sait que M. Legault désire que les gens qui rentrent, les immigrants, soient francisés à l'intérieur de 6 mois. On sait que c'est extrêmement difficile de maîtriser le français et de l'apprendre. Pensez-vous qu'il faut vraiment avoir un certain temps alloué ou... Qu'est-ce que vous...
Écoutez, c'est toujours aléatoire de parler de 6 mois. Pourquoi 6 mois? Pourquoi pas 7? Pourquoi pas 3? Une personne qui arrive de l'Amérique latine, dont la langue maternelle et l'espagnol n'a pas les mêmes difficultés au niveau de l'apprentissage du français que quelqu'un qui arrive de Chine, dont c'est le mandarin, la langue, ou le cantonais, ou quelqu'un même qui arrive du monde arabo-musulman. Chaque langue a ses complexités, puis il y a des langues qui ont plus de dénominateurs communs. Fait que j'ai toujours trouvé ça un peu bizarre qu'on veuille accorder une période de temps sans prendre en considération le niveau de difficulté que c'est. Moi, j'ai l'espagnol puis l'italien, je les parle pas, mais je les comprends, puis j'ai jamais pris de cours. L'arabe, j'ai étudié pendant des années, puis je le baragouine à peine. Donc, je veux juste vous dire que c'est pas, on parle pas de la même chose. Et de penser qu'un immigrant, tout est pareil, là, j'ai trouvé ça très réducteur.
Donc aujourd'hui, on est ici à Montréal pour parler de la francisation de l'immigration. Quelle importance vous donnez à la francisation?
Une très grande importance. Moi, je suis né à Montréal, mais j'ai vécu un petit peu partout en Europe, puis au Liban. Et à mon retour en 91, on avait le choix justement d'aller soit à Toronto ou à Montréal. On a choisi Montréal et plus précisément Longueuil pour le côté, pour la culture québécoise et pour la francisation. Je parlais déjà français, j'ai été élevé dans un système français et donc pour moi c'était quand même important d'aller de l'avant avec le français, mais quand même tout en gardant mon bilinguisme ou si je pourrais dire mon trilinguisme.
Et comment vous trouvez que le système en ce moment fonctionne? Pensez-vous qu'il y a beaucoup de travail à remettre le système à l'ordre?
Oui, tout à fait, absolument. Surtout au niveau de nouveaux arrivants, il est très important de les accompagner, de les soutenir. Puis effectivement, comme on le mentionne, ça ne se fait pas sur une base de 6 mois en se disant ça s'apprend en 6 mois. On doit aller avec les différentes nationalités, les différents profils, puis surtout justement accompagner nos travailleurs à être à l'aise, à pouvoir travailler dans la langue commune au Québec. Et donc, vraiment, il y a un travail de fond à faire au niveau de l'accompagnement.
Là, on a vu que des gens qui étaient mécontents, qui se sont présentés pour dire leur point de vue. Comment, justement, vous allez faire au Parti conservateur pour unir ces gens qui ont des différences d'opinion?
C'est important, il faut être à l'écoute de la population. Je pense que la clé, c'est d'être à l'écoute, d'être sur le terrain, de faire valoir nos propositions et surtout de les faire connaître. Malheureusement, nos propositions sont méconnues par la population. Et d'où le travail de terrain que je fais depuis le mois de mai dans la région d'Arthabasca, où je rencontre tous mes citoyens dans les activités. J'ai cogné à plus de 8000 portes pour justement faire connaître les valeurs du parti et faire connaître nos propositions et démontrer comment chaque strate de la société, toute la population a à en bénéficier de ces propositions.
Et quels sont les enjeux à Tabasco?
C'est des enjeux communs un petit peu à l'ensemble du Québec, où on a une pénurie de main-d'œuvre, où on a une détresse psychologique qu'il ne faut pas négliger. Et donc, il faut avoir un accompagnement, il faut avoir les ressources à ce niveau-là. Au niveau économique, l'inflation, ça vient toucher la classe moyenne, ça vient toucher les travailleurs. Donc, d'où justement les propositions du parti qui viennent vraiment répondre à ces enjeux-là et à ces défis.
Quelle importance pour vous c'est de justement franciser les nouveaux immigrants?
Je vais parler un peu de mon expérience, puis c'est pour ça que moi, je m'implique. La langue a toujours été utilisée pour diviser, pour régner. Ils veulent aller chercher les anglophones pour les libéraux, puis les francophones pour la CAQ. La CAQ est à un niveau PQ. Donc, moi, en vie cette réalité-là à travers ma mère, puis j'ai parlé de M. Duhem tantôt, il a parlé de ma mère, sur le vécu, puis c'est une histoire que je lui ai dit, c'est une histoire qu'il a répétée. Puis c'est important que le monde sache, c'est qu'elle est venue ici, puis elle n'a eu aucun support pour le français. Moi, le niveau de français que je parle, puis je pense qu'il est assez bien, c'est à cause de, je vous dirais, 1 ou 2, peut-être 3 professeurs au primaire et au secondaire qui m'ont suivi tout le long. Et...
You know, it's a very detailed report. I enjoy it, very substantive, and even this story, you know that word francisé? I've never heard that word before. I just Googled it. It's what it sounds like. I guess the best way to say that word in English is Frenchify, to make French, and that's an incredible discussion, and they're all having it. How do we Frenchify? That's not really a real word, but francisé. How do we make more French the immigrants to Quebec? And you heard Eric Duhem saying, look, there's some people who can master French quickly. If you speak Italian or Spanish, you're halfway there. And it's true, there's such a similarity in language, whereas Arabic or Chinese is not the case. I mean, those are complexities, as Eric Duhem said, but it's interesting for me, as someone living in the English part of Canada, that you have a leading politician and his party talking about asserting Canadian culture, or in their case, French culture. Learn the language. And they're talking about the fact that with some folks from some countries, it's going to take a lot longer than from others, and that's just plain talk. But isn't that interesting that they're even allowed to talk about assimilation and integration and the duty that immigrants to Canada would have to learn the language. We're not even allowed to have that conversation in English Canada, but they have in Quebec. I also like the fact that Alexa is well treated by the Conservative Party. I mean, with good reason. She's an excellent reporter. Her questions are very smart. But there is a bigotry amongst the political class in the left in Canada to not answer questions from Rebel News for no reason other than we ask tough questions. Or we ask questions that aren't just liberal softballs. So I thought that was an interesting little clip there. And I don't know. I mean, that was an interesting issue that obviously we don't have the same discussion of here. There's a lot of niche issues in Quebec. I mean, when you're running to be the premier of Quebec, it is a large geography, but most of Quebec, I mean, Quebec goes very far north. Most of Quebec is empty. You know, you have Montreal, you have Quebec City, and you have some smaller cities, but there's lots of niche subjects. For example, in the city of Quebec City itself, there's a lot of talk about a tram, like a train or buses, and these are important local battles. So it's sort of fun to see the local lay of the land. Now it's 7:47, and we're still 15 minutes away from when we're going to officially get things going, and we're going to bring in our friend Alexa. But I want to show you some clips from another one of Alexa's reports, just to give you some background, more detail, more color on our election coverage so far. But first I want to say thanks to those who are watching us. I see we have 344 folks on YouTube, and we have 723 folks watching on Rumble, so that's well over 1,000 folks, and we haven't even really got started yet. I think that's great because, you know, it's a provincial election. It's not a national election. It's in Quebec, which we often have a language barrier. So this is a proud moment for me as the boss of Rebel News to have a broadcast that is about Quebec, and we'll have Alexa joining from Quebec, and she's there. We'll see if we can get an interview with Eric Duhem. I know he'll be extremely busy. He really is the man of the hour. If the polls hold out, it's going to be a majority government for the incumbent, François Legault, and his party, which is, in the long form, Coalition Avenir de Quebec. The Coalition of Quebec's Future would be the exact translation. But the acronym is CAQ. So they call it the CAC, which sort of sounds like, are you a CACist? I vote for the CAC. It's, you know, it just sounds slightly dirty or something. I don't know. But so François Legault is the boss of the CAC. And there's other parties. I mean, of course, there's the Parti Québécois, which you know as traditionally the Separatist Party, and they've formed government a couple of times. And then there's this hard left-wing party called the Quebec Solidaire, which is basically a Marxist Green Party. And then you have the Liberal Party of Quebec, which really doesn't have a lot of purchase these days. And Eric Duhem's new Conservative Party, you can see I like the guy, I'm talking a lot about him, it is in second place. You have that graphic image that we showed on the live stream. The latest poll by Main Street Polling showed, again, that the CAC is going to win a majority. And when you've got, you know, 40+% of the vote, and your closest successor is at 18%, and that's what it's like right now. Eric Duhem's party is at 18%. The PQ, the Liberals, the Quebec Solidaire are all a little bit behind it. But if you've got a 2-to-1 advantage over your next rival in our first past the post system, you are going to win a majority. The only question is how big. But what's so exciting to me to see is that Eric Duhem has taken his party from really, it wasn't even a thing 2 years ago, to the leading challenger in Quebec today. And let me show you this poll. Now, this is en français, but let me walk you through it. So you can see on the left, CAC Legault, 41.7%. All right, obviously they're in the lead. The Liberal Party, 14 and change. The Parti Québécois, 13. The Quebec Solidaire, that's the hard left-wingers, 12%. And look at that, Conservatives under Duhem, 17.8%. So that's a strong second place, but look at the parts highlighted in yellow. Do you see the age there? So young Quebecers, 18 to 34, the two most popular parties are the Quebec Solidaire, the hard left-wingers, and Eric Duhem. They're both around 25%. But then the slightly older group, like those who are 35 to 49, really dominated by Eric. So the most popular party for those under 50 is Eric Duham's Conservative Party. Now, if you look at 50 to 64, Legault takes the lead, and then just overwhelming for Legault for senior citizens. And it makes sense. He has spent 2 years absolutely terrorizing everyone about the pandemic. They literally put the province under a curfew from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. You could not leave your house, even to take your dog out for a poop. Couldn't walk your dog. How's that a health measure? And like the curfew, I just can't even get over that whenever I say it. Whether you were healthy or sick, you were banned from going onto the street. Whether you were vaxxed or not, you were banned from going on the street. Adults, children, law-abiding people or criminals, you were all jailed in your own house from 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. And as I was saying on the live stream today, I guess if you're like an 80-year-old woman, and that 80-year-old women are like 75% of them are going to go vote for Legault. If you're an 80-year-old woman, you don't really care about the fact that there's a curfew from 10 till 5 because you're not going out after 10. You don't really care about the fact that the gyms were closed and the restaurants were closed because you're not really going out. You don't care that all the mom and pop shops were shut down because you don't work. So Legault terrified senior citizens, and they love it. The Party of Freedom, Eric Duhem, is the party that has the strength of those of young people. By young, I mean under 50. I want to show you, this is our reporter. I think can't tell if that's Yankee or Alexa. It's Alexa. Turn on the volume. Let's watch a bit of this. This is from the curfew times.
Alexa Lavoie News, I'm here in Quebec City because people are breaking the curfew. As you can see, they are surrounded from the police. I don't know how many times they would take for that they have a fine, but we just past 10 o'clock. We have an announcement that they risk to have a fine if they stay in the street after 10 p.m. We'll see what will happen, but keep following us.
Oui à la vie normale. 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 Oui à la vie normale.
So, what I just saw right now, a guy tried to escape and just leave the place, but they did a wall to stop them to leave. So right now they are trapped inside of the circle. They will all be fined. They have no choice because they cannot leave right now because now it's 10:02, so now they will have all fine. No choice. They cannot leave. So they just harassed the first person is François Almeida. You remember François Almeida from previous report. Is the freedom fighter from Quebec who are always standing up against this tyranny measure put in place by the Legault government. So we'll see if they just arrest him right now. We'll see if they will find other person. Keep following. Donc vous les arrêtez.
Ils sont interpellés pour tout de suite. On va leur signifier un constat. Et après ça, s'ils veulent rentrer chez eux, ils vont pouvoir. Sinon, ils vont être arrêtés.
OK. OK. Parce que vous savez qu'à Montréal, il n'y a personne qui a été arrêté.
Bien, ici, c'est Québec, madame.
Ah, vous ne fonctionnez pas de la même manière? Vous êtes...
Je ne peux pas vous commenter sur comment Montréal fonctionne. Je vous dis c'est comment ici qu'on fonctionne.
OK. Mais vous n'avez pas assez de place en prison pour autant de personnes, monsieur? Non? Qu'est-ce que vous pensez des prochaines mesures que le couvre-feu va être pour les non-vaccinés? Il va falloir que vous fassiez l'arrêt de tous les véhicules. Est-ce que vous aimez ça? Faire cette job-là? Non? OK. No answer. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez justement de ça, que le renforcement de la police, encore une fois?
C'est ridicule, moi. C'est ridicule. Ça n'a pas de bon sens qu'il soit plus de policiers qu'on soit nombreux ici à soir. C'est même désespérant qu'on soit si peu nombreux.
Et là, pensez-vous que ces mesures-là vont s'étendre aux autres provinces?
Je l'espère, je le souhaite. Que ces mesures-là, ça devrait...
Ouais.
Ah, mais j'espère que non. J'espère que les autres provinces vont se réveiller aussi et qu'il va être plus qu'on était ici à soir, par contre. Parce que le nombre qu'on était à soir, c'est pas assez suffisant pour avoir un impact, là. Ça n'a pas de bon sens.
Et qu'est-ce que vous pensez qu'ils veulent le mettre seulement pour les non-vaccinés bientôt?
Le passeport?
Non, le couvre-feu.
Le couvre-feu, juste pour les non-vaccinés? Je trouve que ça changera pas grand-chose. Le couvre-feu, il n'a même pas été prouvé efficace à la base. Fait que ça va changer, que ce soit rien que pour nous autres ou rien que pour les vaccinés.
Bonjour. Ben non, mais je suis média.
Ça me dérange pas, présentement, vous êtes en infraction.
Ben oui, mais j'ai mon papier. Demandez-moi mon papier. Puis vous n'avez pas le droit de me toucher en ce moment.
Venez avec moi au char.
Non.
On va là-bas.
OK. Écoutez, j'ai ma carte, j'ai mon attestation.
Carte de quoi, ça?
Je suis un média.
média
Je
de
travaille pour Rebel News.
OK, ben...
Mais attendez, j'ai mon papier d'exemption. Oui. Par mon boss. J'ai le droit d'être...
Après ça, on va demander d'être à l'extérieur de l'intervention.
Ben non, j'ai le droit d'être ici. Je suis là pour reporter l'intervention policière.
Vous allez faire de l'extérieur du périmètre policier. C'est ça qui va être demandé.
So at this moment, I get like check for my paper, just for let you know. We'll see if they will act as Montreal police. They let us alone, but as you can see, Quebec police is so way different here. They don't pretty respect the paper, maybe.
J'imagine que vous avez une pièce d'identité.
Oui, j'ai une pièce d'identité, monsieur.
Je peux vous demander ça, s'il vous plaît.
Aussi. So they asked me for my ID right now. C'est Ezra Levant, président de la compagnie médiatique Rebel News. Et si vous ne savez pas, c'est un des médias qui a plus de personnes qui regardent que Radio-Canada et tous ces autres médias-là.
OK. Je vais faire des petites vérifications parce que Ezra Levant, ça ne me dit rien du tout.
Ben, allez vérifier. Si vous tapez son nom, vous allez voir qu'il y a beaucoup de monde qui le connaît.
Ne retournez pas, madame. Vous êtes média, on va vérifier. Après ça, c'est à l'extérieur de l'intervention policière. Pas dans la foule.
Ben, à Montréal, moi, j'étais dans la
Vous êtes
foule.
à Québec,
OK.
puis ça va être ça, les règlements. Alors, je vais vous demander d'être à l'extérieur du périmètre policier.
Pourquoi vous êtes agressif avec moi, monsieur?
C'est directif. Il y a deux
OK.
choses différentes.
Oui, mais moi,
Parce
je
que vous
suis
pouvez pas
très,
juste
très,
m'obstiner avec
très...
vous. Je vous dis ce qu'il y en est.
Oui, il n'y a pas de problème,
Super,
moi.
on va bien s'entendre. C'est merveilleux.
OK. Ah, ben ouais. Je pense que faut se calmer un peu, là.
On va juste se diriger ici, à côté du véhicule.
OK, pas de problème. They don't know Ezra Levant in Quebec. You see, language barrier, French, English is not the same. I just hope that my other colleague would not have the same treatment than me.
Alors, vous faites votre choix. Vous allez vous déplacer ou on va vous aider à vous déplacer. C'est ça qui va arriver.
m'aider à me déplacer.
Oui.
Dans quel sens, monsieur?
Vous prenez dans
Est-ce
le
que vous
bras,
êtes en train de
sortez.
me menacer,
Pas
monsieur?
du tout, je vous dis ce qui arrive.
Là, vous êtes en train de me menacer,
Je
monsieur.
vous explique ce qu'il y en a.
Non.
Madame,
Il a dit qu'il faut être à l'extérieur juste pour être sûr de ne pas entraver notre travail.
Je ne veux pas entraper votre travail, je veux juste
comprends.
rapporter les faits.
Mais-
Si je m'en mets un peu plus loin vers là-bas,
Non, ça ne fonctionne pas, on peut pas.
mais de là, ici, comment voulez-vous que
Nous autres,
je rapporte les faits?
Il faut qu'on travaille dans... On est allé toujours là-bas, c'est bien correct. Vous allez avoir des images
Mais c'est parce que lui, il me disait de l'autre
Sauf
côté.
que nous autres, il faut qu'on travaille dans un endroit sécuritaire. Quand il y a du monde dans le dos trop proche de nous autres,
C'est ça que je vous demande, de l'autre côté ou
Faut
l'auto,
juste faire le tour.
le tour qui est blanc là-bas, j'ai une meilleure vue, puis je vous entrave pas.
Là, on est là-bas. Ne se pénétrez pas dans le pétrin, là. Là, vous voulez aller là-bas, ça va être par le tour de l'autre rue, puis on va aller par en arrière. On travaille continuellement avec les médias, on s'entend toujours bien avec les médias. Je vous
Mais
le confirme.
c'est drôle, mais c'est la première fois que je me fais parler autant, aussi agressivement par une personne de la police quand je garde mon calme. Je
Pourtant, il était
comprends
quand
pas.
même, c'est clair, il vous a demandé d'être à l'extérieur des véhicules de police. C'est ça, pas dans la rue. Fait que tout ce côté-là,
Mais
c'est
moi,
correct.
tout ce que je demande, c'est une faveur de pouvoir de filmer où l'auto blanche là-bas, qui est très loin de vous.
Oui.
J'ai une meilleure vue. Mais moi, si je fais le tour, là, il n'y a plus rien quand je reviens.
Ah, je vous confirme qu'il va y avoir encore quelque chose. Je suis pas inquiet. C'est votre feuille.
Mais je comprends pas qu'est-ce que ça peut vous faire que je passe 2 secondes.
Des
Hier,
fois, là-
avec Montréal, la police a été super gentille, m'ont laissé aller. J'étais même à côté d'eux autres, ils ont dit en autant que vous nous laissez l'espace. Là, ici, c'est comme non, 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 vous nous
On est peut-être plus
poussez.
strict un peu, mais des fois, une petite étincelle, juste le fait de marcher, ça pourrait des fois décoller pour rien.
Oui,
On n'a
mais-
pas le goût. Fait que,
Là, est-ce que vous voulez m'escorter de l'autre côté?
non, je vous dis, passer par la ruelle, ça va prendre 5 minutes, vous allez être là, puis il va y avoir encore autant de monde, ou presque. Ça marche?
Ça n'a pas de
Merci.
bon sens.
Merci de votre
Sérieusement, le power trip. Là. So the police just like take me on the side and they say to me that I'm not allowed to be in the perimeter to keep filming what is going on. So they actually stopped me to do my job as a journalist to report you the other side of the story. So we will try to pass to the other side because they didn't want it as well to escort me to the other side for me to have a good view to report on what is going on. And have you seen how rude was the police officer with me? I was not rude with him. I tried to understand why they tried to stop me to do my job. So I knew that the police in Quebec was totally not the same that in Montreal. So please, if you agree and if you want to help us to in our report, go to lockdownreport.com and please help us. So the only way that we can record is from the street, but you see, it's probably not for our safety because all the cars passing through and they can eat us, but they allowed us to be here, but not in the street where it's more safe than here. So what the police say to me, so first of all, they would take them to find them with the first ticket. And if they don't comply to go home, they will find them again and they will bring them in jail. So I know that some people disappear. I don't know where they went. Probably they have been bring in jail because I know that some people wanted to go as far as being detained. We'll see if some people will just take the ticket and leave afterwards, but we'll keep following it for you guys. So what he just said is going into the jail. So he decided to stay and to be detained for the night. So some of the people tonight, they have been detained because they wanted to be detained for the night. Qu'est-ce qui est arrivé avec les policiers de l'autre côté?
En gros, j'étais en arrière de chars de police qui m'ont dit de me tenir en arrière. Puis finalement, j'entendais les deux autres policiers qui parlaient comme quoi que t'étais pas une vraie journaliste, puis t'étais la fille qui avait les roses, puis ils doutaient qu'on était des vrais médias, en fait. Fait que c'était bien correct qu'on va l'entendre dans un du footage.
On va pouvoir we will be able to bring the image back of me. Before I joined Rebel News, I was giving roses to the police. And we will be able to show you the footage of that because they were talking about me giving flower during one of the protests.
And not being a real journalist, supposedly.
That's our Alexa Lavoie. She has a lot more patience than me. If those police were saying those things to me, those ridiculous excuses, those ridiculous power trips, I do not think I would have been as calm and as polite as she was. At least they didn't beat her up, punch her, throw her to the ground, arrest her, put her in jail, or shoot her. And all the things I just described, including the shooting, happened to us on other occasions. And I regret to tell you that it was Alexa herself who was shot, not by the Quebec police, but by their brothers in the Ottawa police, who shot her for reporting, not protesting, for reporting during the trucker convoy. I've said on many occasions that the police were just one of the many institutions that utterly failed to perform their civic duties. They became politicized errand boys for politicians and bureaucrats. That was not crime fighting. That was not law enforcement. That was enforcing political edicts and junk science. And I thought Alexa kept her calm very nicely. So she's been doing important reports. She started with us covering the lockdowns and the curfews and the pandemic. And of course, she's moved on to the news of the day. And we will be joining her live on location from Eric Duham's Conservative Party of Canada, Conservative Party of Quebec, headquarters, as we think that it's going to be interesting news. I say again, I do not predict any outcome in Quebec other than Francois Legault winning a clear majority. And I find this demoralizing, but it's no different than John Horgan, the Premier of Quebec, being re-elected, or Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, being re-elected. In fact, most provincial politicians, and Justin Trudeau himself, was re-elected in 2021. I find it depressing, but one of the reasons is that there really wasn't an alternative. I mean, if you wanted to vote against Justin Trudeau in the last federal election, I suppose you could have voted for Maxime Bernier, but, and though I like the guy very much, I just have to tell you, the chance that he would form a government was very low. He didn't even have a seat himself. So, if you wanted to depose Justin Trudeau in the last election, you had to vote for who? Aaron O'Toole, who did not meaningfully oppose anything of the lockdowns. And you had total unanimity of all the party leaders federally, and provincially, every premier and every opposition leader supported the lockdowns and the vaccine mandates. So there was no choice. The fact that Eric Duhem is polling at 18% in his first time out in a party that was really non-existent until now shows you what can happen with when a principled, freedom-oriented political leader presents himself and doesn't bend the knee to the journalists. Now, I'm glad that Aaron O'Toole was defenestrated and Pierre Poilievre is in his place. I think Pierre Poilievre has some courage that Aaron O'Toole didn't have. And I'm glad that Eric Duhem has 18% in the polls. Will that translate into seats for him? You know, our first past the post system, you can come in second in every riding in the province and not get a single seat. Eric Duhem will not come in second in every riding in the province, but he might come in second in 20 of them, 30 of them. But that's, you know, they talk about the efficiency of votes. If you come in second everywhere, that doesn't do you a lot of good, whereas if you come in first in one place, that does you a lot of good. That's our system, and I'm not here to propose a new one. I'm just saying there will be a distortion. Now, I see on the screen we have our very first result, and it looks like the Coalition Avenir Quebec, the CAQ, is leading in 24 districts, and the Liberal Party of Quebec is leading in 5. But those are the seats. As you can see, Quebec Solidaire, that's the hard left-wing party, is leading in 1 seat. The Parti Québécois, that's the separatist party, is leading in 1, and the Conservative Party of Quebec is leading in 1. So far, these results seem to show the Conservative Party of Quebec not living up to their polling promise. But it's very early. You have only the results of about 33 districts in the whole province. Only 170 polls in the entire province are counted. So it's very early days. I'm excited about it because frankly, I had a worry that the Conservative Party might actually be shut out. Now, I know they have some strength, for example, in the area called the Beauce. That's where Maxime Bernier was from. That's a traditionally freedom-oriented place. So we'll certainly keep an eye on the place, and we'll go back to this electoral map from time to time. I'm going to keep it open on my laptop here. I want to give a shout out to the nearly 1,000 people watching on Rumble and the 344 watching on YouTube. It's nice to see. And we haven't even got to the star of the evening, our friend Alexa. I will let you know when we're ready to make that connection via Skype, but she's just getting in place now. You know, we have some other videos. You know, there were some fun ones. Like there was I don't know if you can find this one in a hurry, Efron, but I know it might sound obscure, but I just enjoyed it. I just thought it was an interesting video. It just tells you how important local politics is. It was about a proposal to build a tram for environmental reasons. But what makes me chuckle is to make this tram, they would have had to cut down so many trees, like beautiful trees in the middle of the road, like what, not only environmental, but just aesthetic, like to hack down all these trees to build a stupid tram. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed this little story. We're going to find it here. Yeah, now we had a report by Alexa and Guillaume on the tram. I'm just talking to Efron of our team. And if you can find that report, let's do that, because I don't know, it was a fun local story. And rebelnews.com, tram, Quebec. Yeah, here, let's take a look at it.
The tramway will help our economy to be better, to grow. As soon as they will say that we have a way to move ourselves, to commute during the day, that is reaching the goal of the 2030, the 2040s aspiration of the people, in our way to move in order to respect our planet, in order to respect our, I would say, huge environmental issues that we have. So we need to look at them. We need to look at them and say that we're going to do whatever it is needed to do in order to build a better planet, to give them a better planet that we receive, and that we're going to give them if we don't react now.
Hi everybody, Guillaume Roy for Rebel News. Today I'm in Quebec City for a protest against the big project, the tramway. So I'm gonna ask to people why they are against that project. Let's check it out. Can you explain me the project of the tramway? What is it?
The government have give some budget to the mayor and all the people at the Quebec City Town Hall to make what they call a projet structurant, because they think it's a better way for the people to let go the cars and to take public transportation. But people in Quebec City, they don't want that. They want to still use the bus and the tramway. It's too expensive. It's crazy, and the wire in the air and all the problem they will have. It's not a good thing for Quebec City.
It's a bad project that was never proposed to the population. We never voted. There's no democratic legitimacy, and we do believe that we have a word to say as citizens. It's the most important infrastructure ever in Quebec City. It's $4 billion, the greatest expense ever, and there is no way they're going to impose a tramway without the will of the people. So we want them, and we see the polls. We saw polls where there's between 38 and 44% in favor of the tramway and all the others against. There's a strong majority against that project, and we do believe that those people need to be understood. It's not because some political elites agree with the tramway that we need to have one. We need to be consulted. October 3rd, there's an election in Quebec, and we do believe that in Quebec City region, people need to vote on that issue specifically.
It's supposed to be a green project when we're looking at the main media, and why a lot of people say it's the opposite.
I will say a few things in French here, if you permit. D'abord, quand on me dit que c'est un projet vert pour moi, c'est pas un projet qui va abattre des centaines d'arbres centenaires à Québec. Un projet vert, c'est pas un projet qui va abattre 11 hectares de forêt, qui va créer des îlots de chaleur, puis qui va mettre des fils électriques comme une toile d'araignée au-dessus de nos têtes. Le projet de tramway, c'est tout sauf un projet vert. D'autant plus qu'on ne sait même pas s'il va y avoir plus de gens qui vont se promener en transport collectif au lendemain de ça. A green project for us is to make sure that people can take the public transit for free. That's what the Conservative Party is offering right now. We're saying, look, let's do a test. Let's do it for a few years and see if people are truly interested. Are they ready to abandon their car to have, the bus free, or do they just want to keep their car? Then we're wasting our money with public transit. So that's what we're proposing in the upcoming election. We're going to say we're proposing free public transit instead of a tramway.
The people never have been able to tell to the government and to the administration that they don't want that kind of transport. This is not the good transport for Quebec City. We think that electric bus will be better, and the tramway will have many difficulties with cutting some trees, putting some wires in the air. So it's a bad system for Quebec City, and people is angry because they don't. The government, they don't listen to the people, and the people are very angry about it.
And how many trees they want to cut?
It's 5,000 trees they want to cut overall for the project, yeah. And some 1,500, it's 100 years old trees on René Lévesque. So it's unbelievable in 2022 to cut that kind of trees. People are very angry about it.
Quebec next provincial.
I don't know. I mean, that's what politics is about, and it's just the trees, and I just got a kick out of it. As you can see, we do some of our videos in Quebec en français and some en anglais. I don't know. I just sort of like that, and I like the tag team of Guillaume Roy and Alexa Lavoie. And I don't know. I'm just proud that Rebel News, which started with 8 people around my living room, now has about 60 plus people across Canada, from Vancouver on the far west to Montreal in the east. And as you know, we have teammates in Australia and the UK, and a couple of Americans too. So we're giving her full tilt. Still waiting to make a connection with Alexa. She is on location, and I think they're figuring out some technical thing, but I have no worries because I know we're still early. Now let's go back to the Quebec results. Now we're relying on Elections Quebec, and I see them posted here on the website. Now, unfortunately, according to their projections, the Conservative Party of Quebec, although it's received more than 10% of the vote, is not leading in any seats anymore. Whereas, for example, the Quebec Solidaire, that's the hard left-wing party I told you about, it has fewer votes, 9.2% of the vote share, but they're leading in 3 districts. That's the nature of the first-past-the-post system. The Parti Québécois is leading in 1 district. The Quebec Liberals have 10, but the CAQ, that's the Coalition Avenir Quebec, the incumbent, is now leading or elected in 42, and it is, I think, universally projected that they will form a majority government, and it looks like they will form a large majority government. I understand there's 125 seats, I think, in what they call their National Assembly. They don't call it the legislature or the provincial parliament. They call it a National Assembly. And they call their premier the Prime Minister. Did you know that? But that's the nature of coming in second in a lot of places, and it'll be disappointing if a party that grew so much and had such an interesting point of view comes in second and third in a lot of places but does not actually punch through. When I last talked to you a few minutes ago, they were leading in 1 district, but not anymore. So, not a big surprise, but always one hopes that there will be a breakthrough for the good guys. While we're waiting for Alexa, and I'll keep you coming back to the results, I think we should go back and find another Quebec report. And there were some that showed you how well the Quebec Conservative Party received Alexa's questions, and why wouldn't they? But others, the Quebec Solidaire. Remember this one, Efron, where Alexa interviewed Manon, and I forget her last name. Do you know who I'm talking about? Manon, Quebec Solidaire. Manon Massé is her name, and she is a member of the National Assembly. And so she's a hard left-wing Marxist, like really, really radical. But she had time for Alexa, and I wouldn't mind showing that, just because I thought it was a very civil exchange. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know that one? Yeah. We'll be ready in a few seconds. So again, Manon Massé, Quebec Solidaire, that's sort of the Marxist radical party, but their leader, why wouldn't their leader talk to Alexa? cooties or germs. No, I mean, like, what kind of a loser politician is afraid to talk to a journalist of a different stripe? Well, thankfully, Manon Massé was happy to talk to her. Here, I'll let you see for yourself.
Roxham, c'est un symptôme d'un mal beaucoup plus grand qui est l'incapacité du gouvernement québécois d'assumer que le Québec est une terre d'accueil. Alors, ces gens-là ne sont pas des illégaux, c'est-à-dire que les lois qui ont été adoptées par les grands pays de ce monde, dont les États-Unis et le Canada, obligent les gens de se mettre dans des situations extrêmement difficiles. Et dans ce sens-là, pour nous, à Québec solidaire, c'est plutôt d'agir en fermant les bras, en disant non, non, non. C'est de dire, OK, on ouvre les bras, on accueille les gens, on en prend soin, mais on prend soin de tout le monde.
The history of the Quebec Solidaire Party is still young in Quebec. And I quote, Quebec Solidaire was officially formed at the end of a conference at the University of Montreal on February 4, 2006. It is the result of the merger of the Union of Force Progressists and Option Citoyenne, a political movement founded in 2004 by Françoise David. In 2002, the Rassemblement for an Progressist Alternative, the Party of Democratic Socialists, and the Party Communist of Quebec joined together to form the UFP. The fundamental principle and value of Quebec Solidaire are the environment, social justice, feminism, alter-globalism, democracy, pluralism, Quebec sovereignty, and solidarity. The fact that the party has two spokespersons instead of a single party leader is not unanimously supported by the member. Some are in favor of greater equality, and others think it is detrimental to the party. For the next election campaign, their issues are mostly on the environment, the housing crisis, and health. I had an interview with Manon Massé. Listen to the report. So, Alexa for Urban News, and I'm currently in Montreal for the launching of the new office of Quebec Solidaire. I'm here to ask a couple of questions to Manon Massé, and as you know, their new slogan is Changer d'air. And it is the 7th time that she's present herself for the election for the riding of Sainte-Marie-Saint-Jacques.
J'imagine que vous n'êtes pas ici juste parce que je suis belle, je suis fine, puis que j'ai une belle Manon Mobile devant la porte, là. Je peux pas croire ça. Vous êtes ici parce que, comme moi, vous croyez que les services publics, c'est une façon d'éliminer les inégalités entre les gens de notre population. Ah oui, on adopte une loi pour interdire l'exploration et l'exploitation gazière et pétrolière au Québec, ce que la CAQ a fait dans les derniers mois. Mais on va construire un 3e lien, puis on va multiplier les autoroutes. Non, non, ça prend de la cohérence. C'est l'élection de la dernière chance par rapport à la question de la lutte au changement climatique. Et Québec solidaire, au tout début de la campagne, on va vous le dire. C'est quoi qu'on va faire, comment qu'on va faire, combien ça va coûter et comment on va arriver à atteindre la cible nécessaire, bien sûr ambitieuse, mais nécessaire de réduire nos gaz à effet de serre de 55 % d'ici 2030. Ça, Québec solidaire, on est capable de le faire parce qu'on a le courage politique. On a besoin de vous.
Ben, ma première question, c'est par rapport à la campagne électorale. En fait, comment vous entrevoyez la campagne électorale, puisque maintenant, vous allez être 5 partis au débat des chefs?
Oui. Ben, écoutez, moi, la démocratie, c'est toujours quelque chose auquel je crois. Je pense que les idées qui vont être défendues là, j'ai complètement confiance que mon co-porte-parole, Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, va être d'une part très à même de défendre les idées de Québec solidaire, les amener, mais aussi de déconstruire les fausses idées qui pourraient se présenter, mettons, à la CAQ ou des choses comme ça. Alors, voilà, la démocratie, c'est d'ailleurs pourquoi on est pour une réforme du mode de scrutin à Québec solidaire.
On sait que vous êtes considéré, vous vous considérez comme l'opposition officielle, même si vous êtes la deuxième. On sait que vous avez été plus ou moins effacé pendant la pandémie, considérant l'opposition face aux décisions gouvernementales de M. Legault par rapport aux mesures COVID. On sait maintenant qu'il y a eu beaucoup de répercussions au niveau social, économique et psychologique. Est-ce que, sachant tout ce qu'on sait maintenant aujourd'hui, auriez-vous fait plus votre part en termes d'opposition sur les décisions?
Ben, c'est-à-dire que Québec solidaire, tout le long, là, on a été en opposition. Je veux dire, dès que François Legault a parlé, par exemple, de couvre-feu, on a fait « Wow, attends, ça marche pas, là. » Il y a du monde, je le sais, moi, ils sont dans mon comté, il y a du monde que la rue, c'est leur maison. Fait que ça marche pas ton affaire, tu sais, il y a quelque chose là qui est complètement capoté. Je pense que, en fait, ce que Québec solidaire aurait fait de différent, c'est que nous, par exemple, toutes les conditions de travail des femmes, parce que c'est surtout des femmes, tu le sais, là, qui sont dans les réseaux de santé, qui ont soutenu et qui soutiennent encore aujourd'hui à bout de bras le bien-être de notre société, ben on aurait pris soin de ces femmes-là. Ça aurait été notre première étape. Ensuite, quand on a appris que le virus se propage par les aérosols, ben déjà, je pense que Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, mon co-porte-parole, ça a été le premier à dire, ben voyons, nos CHSLD sont mal aérés, nos écoles sont mal... Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Qu'est-ce qu'on fait pour ça? Alors nous, on a toujours interpellé le gouvernement dans ses responsabilités, dans les choix politiques qu'il a fait et ceux qu'il n'a pas fait, bien sûr.
Et ma dernière question, on sait que c'est au niveau fédéral, mais c'est quand même un très gros enjeu au niveau du Québec. C'est le chemin Roxham Road qui met de la pression au niveau économique et qui met de la pression au niveau du logement. Comment vous allez faire pour gérer avec le fédéral cet enjeu d'ampleur?
Bien, pour nous, à Québec solidaire, vous le savez, on est un parti indépendantiste. Donc, la démarche qui nous mène, c'est une démarche de prise de contrôle du peuple québécois sur notre avenir. Et vous savez, le chemin Roxham, c'est un symptôme d'un mal beaucoup plus grand qui est l'incapacité du gouvernement québécois d'assumer que le Québec est une terre d'accueil. Alors, ces gens-là ne sont pas des illégaux. C'est-à-dire que les lois qui ont été adoptées par les grands pays de ce monde, dont les États-Unis et le Canada, obligent les gens de se mettre dans des situations extrêmement difficiles. Et dans ce sens-là, pour nous, à Québec solidaire, c'est plutôt d'agir en fermant les bras, en disant non, non, non. C'est de dire, OK, on ouvre les bras, on accueille les gens, on en prend soin, mais on prend soin de tout le monde. Et vous savez quoi? Vous me parlez de logement. Ça fait 8 ans que je parle au Parlement du Québec qu'il y a un manque criant de logement au Québec et que soit les libéraux, les caquistes font rien. Alors moi, j'ai pas honte de dire que Québec solidaire, on va prendre les moyens pour que tout être humain puisse vivre, comme le dit la Déclaration des Nations unies, en droit et en dignité de façon égale. Moi, j'y crois.
Comment vous allez faire pour faire en sorte que le consommateur qui achète l'automobile électrique dans la batterie, on sait que le cobalt qui y provient de République démocratique du Congo où des enfants perdent leur vie et d'autres personnes qui travaillent dans les mines, en fait, risquent leur vie pour ce minéraux-là qui est extrêmement important pour la conception de ces batteries-là. Comment vous allez faire en sorte pour que les consommateurs qui achètent ces automobiles-là soient au moins sûrs de savoir qu'est-ce qu'ils achètent au niveau d'impact dans les autres pays?
Exactement. Bien, ça, c'est la responsabilité internationale. Québec solidaire est prêt à l'assumer pleinement. Mais je vous dirais qu'à Québec solidaire, remplacer une voiture à gaz par une voiture électrique, c'est pas la solution. Ce qu'il faut, c'est développer des modes de transport dignes du 21e siècle et du défi de la transition. Et ça s'appelle transport en commun, du transport interurbain, du transport actif. Et c'est là que Québec solidaire va mettre son énergie. Et pour ce qui est, vous me parlez de l'exploitation, et vous avez raison, des mines à l'extérieur du Québec, mais je vous dirais même ici au Québec, que ce soit le lithium, le graphite, pose des sérieux problèmes à des communautés entières. Nous, à Québec solidaire, on dit qu'il faut revoir la façon d'utiliser ce qu'on appelle les matériaux stratégiques. Et une des façons qu'on fait ça, c'est en revisitant la loi sur les mines qui permettent en fait aux minières de faire comme ils veulent, quand ils veulent.
So as you know, we want to cover...
Oh, I learned so much from that interview. I don't know if you did too. First of all, I had only seen pictures of Manon Massé before. I had never listened to an interview because I don't know if she speaks English. And having that translation there was helpful. I don't know, in pictures, and I should never judge a book by its cover, but I always thought she looked mean. But it was the opposite, wasn't it? She was so friendly and animated and had great patience for Alexa's questions and answered them thoughtfully. Now, let's be honest, she's a commie, but she gave her answers just as she would to any other reporter on any part of the political spectrum. I'm glad that she treated our reporter with respect, and I know that's a strange thing to keep mentioning, but in our age of cancel culture and wokeism, for that hardcore commie left-wing separatist party, very unusual party, to, I'm not going to say roll out the red carpet, but to absolutely welcome Alexa into their event without shouting or screaming. I mean, and again, that's just natural, but in 2022, you have to thank goodness for small miracles, like a lefty who's willing to talk as opposed to cancel you. I also learned something that actually improves my esteem for Manon Manet and the Massé and the Quebec Solidaire Party, which is, I actually, and I'll admit this, I did not know that they opposed some of the lockdown measures, such as the curfew. And so earlier tonight, you heard me say that I don't think any opposition party in the country opposed, but there you have it, Manon Massé, the Quebec Solidaire. Now, granted, they're just a couple of MNAs, as they're called there. It's not a large political force, but give her credit. She said she was against the curfew, and maybe she was against other parts of the lockdown too, and they didn't come up there. But I feel like I learned something about her. I would never vote for her. She's a Marxist, deep. But I thought that was a great little interview. Substantive, and, a little bit utopian. Well, if you're not for a gasoline car and you're not for an electric car, what are you for? I don't know if she really had any real-life answers, Manon Massé, but she was trying to be intellectually consistent. Full marks to her. Now, do you want to go back to the CBC webpage, just because it's in English, and click refresh on that, and this is the tally of the votes so far, and you'll see that the Conservative Party of Quebec, which of course has my heart, has 10.4% of the vote share, so not the 18% predicted in that poll. Their 10.4% is more than the Quebec Solidaire Party, but look at that. The Quebec Solidaire Party is leading in 7 districts, and the Conservative Party of Quebec is leading in 0. The Quebec Liberal Party is at 13.4, again, just a little bit ahead of the Quebec Conservatives, but it's all in Montreal. So they're leading or elected in 14 districts. The Parti Québécois is leading or elected in 2 districts. So all 4 of the opposition parties are within a few points of each other. Like the total span of the opposition parties is within 4%. 10.1%, 10.5%, 13.4%, 14.4%. They're all really densely packed. But the fact that one of those opposition parties has 0 seats and the other has 14 speaks to our first past the post system. And I'm a little bit sad because the Quebec Liberal Party is absolutely useless. I'm not saying the Quebec Solidaire Party is useless. I'm saying they're a bunch of extremist communists. But because of our system, the Quebec Conservative Party doesn't seem to be getting any traction. Whereas the Coalition Avenir Quebec, the governing party, which has almost exactly 50% of the vote, and let me just stop right there. If you are a Canadian political party that gets 50% of the vote in a multi-party race, you're going to have an enormous majority. It just is. I mean, they have quadrupled, basically, their next runner-up. But still, the system is so skewed. They have half the vote, but already they're leading or elected in 78 of the districts. They are going to have a disproportionate result. So I don't have the math on my fingertips, but I think the Quebec Liberal Party, which is leading or elected in 13 seats and has 13% of the vote, that's a good guide. For every 1% they got a seat. Compare that to the Coalition Avenir Quebec. They have 50%. You'd think they would have 50 seats. No, they have 80. And the Conservative Party of Quebec, you'd think they would have 10 seats. No, they have 0. I'm not here to cry. I'm just here to say that the first past the post system, well, it's just as unfair to the Parti Québécois. 14% of the vote, 2 seats. That's the party of the late René Lévesque. It's very interesting. Let us read some comments from the live chat. I understand that we're a few minutes away from connecting with Alexa, and I know you came here to hear from her. Casey Willis says Duhem should have at least 30%. Well, look, maybe that last poll that I showed you, which I think was from Main Street, was a little bit, inaccurate might be the word. And I'm not saying that's on purpose. It's hard to measure insurgent opposition parties. It just is. The great Lenfer says the Conservative Party of Quebec has more votes than Quebec Solitaire. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Oh, my friends, I see Alexa Lavoie, our star reporter in Quebec, is connecting to us from the headquarters of the Conservative Party of Quebec. I can see her there. We just did a mic check, and she joins us now. Alexa, bienvenue, mon ami. Hello, and how are you?
Hello. I'm really good. It was really hard to connect.
No problem. I was talking about things and showing videos of your election reports to pass the time, and they were very interesting. I just showed your interview with Manon Massé of the Quebec Solidaire. You know, it's interesting. Quebec Solidaire has 10.4%, almost exactly the same vote as the Parti Conservateur de Québec. But the Quebec Solidaire has 7 seats in the National Assembly that they're leading in, and the Conservatives have 0. I find that a little bit disappointing. All the effort, all the campaigning, and it doesn't look like they're breaking through in any one district yet.
You need to understand something for the Conservative Party. If it was a democratic vote, Mr. Duhem will have more seats. But now that is regional, unfortunately, that's a lay against him because we can observe that the active population is way more on the side of Éric Duhem, and the elderly people is way more in the side of Legault. For Quebec Solidaire, it will be more activists for climate change that will vote for Quebec Solidaire. And for the sovereignist and people believe that the French is really important and we are losing our French, that will be more Quebec Party. And the allophone and anglophone and a lot of immigrants will probably vote liberal.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
Now, there was a moment there where the party was leading in a district, and I saw Éric Duhem campaigning in the Beauce riding, which is often a party that goes freedom-oriented. That's where Maxime Bernier himself had a federal seat. Are there any ridings that people at the Conservative Party headquarters are looking at? Are there any districts where they think they can break through into first place?
Of course, they have both Sud and both North that they think that they can break through it. And maybe Chauveau. This is the riding of Éric Duhem. Because that riding is a lot of families, a lot of young people. And it's probably why it took that riding, especially because we know that that riding is against the tramway. And that riding is really more on the vision of the Conservative Party. So it's why they are looking for Chauveau and La Beauce, and mostly in Quebec, because as I say, Conservative Party, most of the vote will be in Quebec City, the capital. Montreal will be a little bit less, I think, because it's not where he performed. It was mostly, the coverage was mostly in the radio 88 of Montréal Live. Mm-hmm. That is not shown in Montreal. It's why the coverage of the Conservative Party was really less in Montreal and other districts than the Quebec capital.
Now, let's talk for a minute about the media coverage. It felt like some of the establishment media were trying to undermine Duhem. I mean, there was a front page picture, I think it was in the Journal de Montréal, of the 5 party leaders at the debate, and they cut off Eric Duhem. He was only half on the front page. Like, they literally cropped him out of the photo. I've never seen anything like it. It was on the front page. They ran a hit piece that he was late in paying some property tax, and it was like the Watergate scandal, the way they were so breathless about him. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a story, but it was so clear to me that they had a mission to undermine Eric Duhem. Do you agree or disagree with that? Because, of course, here I am in Toronto, and my command of the French language is not very strong. It just looked to me like the mainstream media wanted to undermine Duhem in a way that they have never tried to undermine the Quebec Solidaire Party or the Parti Québécois.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I actually agree with you. They tried to undermine that party because at the beginning, they didn't take him seriously because it was the voice of the people who most of the media was painting them as conspiracy theory, anti-vaxxer, and a lot of other insults and bad names. And so for them, it was a kind of activist. But when they saw that it was growing really fast, they were not capable to ignore him anymore. So what they probably did, instead of covering him fairly, they say probably, well, we just try to find more of what we are capable to do, to find so many bad stuff about him and all these candidates, so nobody will want to vote for him.
I think that I allowed myself to get my hopes ahead of me because I was watching your reports, which I enjoyed, and I saw that last poll, which put him at almost 18%. So I allowed myself to get very excited. But really, if you take a step back, this is Eric Duhem's first campaign. The party was really non-existent 2 years ago. And, you know, if I'm looking at, and of course the results are still early, but they are essentially tied in the popular vote with the Liberals and really all the other opposition parties. There's a big pack of them between 10 and 15%. So for his first time out, it really was remarkable. He recruited interesting candidates. He ran a strong campaign. He was a good communicator. I think by every measure, he did a great job. It's just that the way his votes were spread out, they weren't all clustered together like the Liberal Party in Montreal or the Quebec Solidaire in those left-wing districts. So I think it was a great success, but compared to the dreams and the hopes, it probably feels like a disappointment. I don't know. I don't want to project my own feelings on there. What's the mood in the room there? How are people feeling tonight?
A lot of people feel like festive, I would say. A lot of people are so much hope. It's really beautiful to see lots of media, lots of people. I didn't see Eric Duhem yet. He's not in the place. So we will see, but a lot of media, a lot of people are gathering here. And it's actually really beautiful because it's at Manoir like the Large. It's like a big, I would say, cottage.
Yeah.
And no, but a lot of energy is around here. I think a lot of people think that Eric Duhem will do good. You know, same if he got like 1 or 2 or 3 seats, it's better than not having any seats.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm looking at the results on the CBC English language page, and right now it does not look that he has broken through yet. Now, it also looks like the Parti Québécois may only have 2 seats too. But I would think that given how well he's done in the popular vote and starting the party from scratch, that Eric Duhem will continue, and I think even though he may not be in the National Assembly himself, I think the media will treat him seriously because they've seen him earn his rank alongside the Liberal Party, the Parti Québécois, the Quebec Solidaire Party. So I would guess that even if there's a disappointment of not getting the seats they wanted, that I think he's shown he's a serious man with serious ideas who can put together a good campaign, recruit interesting candidates, and scare the establishment. I think he's won, even if he doesn't actually get a single MNA elected.
Yes, but you need to understand too, like Mr. Legault with like at the beginning, he didn't have any seats. And I think he took like 2 mandates that he got like this wave of like cactus to vote and be like majority. But it took a while. So I think Mr. Duham, same if he doesn't have any seat tonight, if he continue and maybe in 4 years, I think you can like gain more and more seats through the years. Because if we look at the program of the Conservative Party, it's actually this really close and similar of La CAQ program 4 years ago.
Right. You know, and I think you're right. I think as an English Canadian, if I were to tell you what little I knew about Francois Legault when he first won, I would say he was a little more business-oriented, a little bit anti-political establishment. But I think he's really become the lockdown guy and the big government guy and the anti-freedom guy. So maybe that's sort of the vote that Eric Duhem and the Conservative Party has picked up. You know, I'm just looking at the CBC projections, and again, that's just a projection. There's still a lot of votes yet to be counted. In fact, it looks like most polls have not been counted yet. But still, I was just doing some math. I was just doing it myself here. The average of the 4 opposition parties is that they needed, for every 5% of the vote they got 1 seat. That's just the average. Whereas the Coalition Avenir Quebec, they got 10 times that. So for every vote they got, every percentage of the vote, they got 2 seats. Let me say that again because I think I might have garbled it a bit. The vote for the CAQ was so efficient that for every percent they got 2 seats. But for the opposition, for every percent they got 1/5 of a seat. So the opposition combined, which had more than 50% of the vote, only has 29 seats. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the CAQ had 10 times more seats for every vote. I don't want to over talk about that because that's just sounds like complaining at the electoral system, but it shows how lucky Legault is. He will have less than half the votes by the time we're done, but he will have probably 80% of the seats, Alexa. Do you think he will think this is a complete endorsement? Do you think Legault will say, you see, everything I did was popular. I don't need to listen to critics. They're all wrong. I was right all along. I'm going to go even harder now. What do you think that's the lesson Legault might take from things?
Well, as you know, like Mr. Legault, it's governing with surveys. It's always do a poll for something that he wants to implement, like for the curfew or for the mask. He always did like some survey, and after that, it was like, this is what Quebecers want, so I'm doing it. And it would do again because it would say, oh, I was right. It's what the Quebecers want. So now I know that I can do whatever I want.
Now, can I ask you a question? I'm coming back to your interview with Manon Massé of the Quebec Solidaire. I really liked that interview, and I thought she was very respectful to you and even friendly. I didn't realize how friendly she was because she sometimes, and I don't mean to judge her by her appearance, but I thought she would be mean Like if I had never heard her speak English before, so I'd never seen her talk before, and I thought she might be mean, but she was very nice. I thought she had a big heart, even though I disagree with almost everything she said. Can I ask you, what has been the approach of the other opposition parties towards the Quebec Conservative Party? Did they ignore Eric Duhem and the Conservatives? Did they attack him? Were they focused on attacking Legault and the CAQ? Like, I'm wondering if the other parties had if they even noticed or cared about the Conservative Party of Quebec.
I would say Mr. Legault is mostly attacking Mr. Duhem. For the other leader, what we saw in the debate, they are attacking him like Duhem, but mostly Legault. Like they are really targeting mostly Legault. I would say that outside of the debate, of course, they did attack Duhem, especially saying that he's the one responsible of the violence and the angriness of the people, and why it's because of it that now the security is more high during the election campaign, because it took like all the bad energy and the angriness of the people out, and it's why they were attacking him. But no, it's just because he is talking in favor, like it's actually taking the voice of the people and expressing it out loud. And people need to be recognized in one of the party, because right now it's not what is happening. Like, Eric Duhem is the only one who say like, you, Mr. Legault, you did some discrimination. You polarize the population. You create some distress in the society. And Eric Duhem is the only one to talk about it.
Other than, you mentioned Moray Live, a popular radio talk show in Quebec City, and Quebec City has always had some of the most freedom-oriented radio shows in Canada, even going back to Andre Arthur and Choix FM. Other than that, have the media have they taken Duhem seriously? Have they looked at his policies seriously? How do you think they're going to treat him now? And I know I'm focusing on Duhem, but I think he is the most interesting politician in Canada, and I find him quite hopeful because he was willing to talk about freedom issues. Other than Moray, did he have any champions or friends or allies in the media in Quebec? I'm just curious.
No, you know, Montréal, it's a radio station that is really different than other radio stations in Quebec. And you will understand that it's why they been private. So the local government did stop the funding for Montréal and the radio during the pandemic, because the line of thinking was not the one that the government wanted. So the only media, I would say, that are covering fairly the Conservative Party, it's Montréal. It's the only one. And Montréal went to a show recently. I think it was on CBC, the French one, Radio Canada. And he went there because he needed to explain a little bit what is going on. And of course, like right when he went there, they attacked him on the radio and his way to think and the way he talked. But he did defend himself pretty well. But this is what we can observe here with our media. Since like the French people doesn't have other options to look at the French media, because some of them doesn't speak English, they just follow one narrative that is shown in multiple platforms.
You know, I'm just looking at the Quebec elections, the official government page for the election results. And as you were talking there, I was listening to you, but something caught my eye. The voter turnout for the election today is calculated to be about 66%, which actually struck me as pretty good. But then I saw that that's actually the lowest in 15 years. In the last election, it was 66%. In 2014, it was 71%. In 2012, it was 75%. And Quebecers sometimes vote in a very high number. When separatism was on the ballot, more than 80% of Quebecers show up to vote. I would have thought that after 2 years of lockdowns and 2 years of curfews and a lack of democracy, I would have thought that Quebecers would have shown up to vote in higher numbers. And especially since there were so many choices now, why is voter turnout basically the same as last time and down, I don't know, from the 70% range 10 years ago?
So I know that I was talking with some people today that they all come from other cities, and they were expecting being able to vote at another place, but they have been refused to vote because they were not at their own riding. So I know a couple of people happened to them, so or they were away because of their work. So that disqualified right away their right to vote because they cannot vote somewhere else than their own riding. Same if they have the paper, same if they have everything, they cannot. So probably this is something important to take into consideration. But I know as well that some elderly people probably did not vote because they were not capable to do the journey and go to the vote office. And I would say that a lot of young people, I would say 18 to 25, doesn't really bother with politics.
Mm-hmm.
So this, I'm really not really surprised for that. But I know that a lot of people in the range of 30 to 45, I think we have more voter than before.
You know, I put too much hope in that last Main Street poll, I think. But, I want to show one thing that bothered me, which is when a politician has an authoritarian streak, when they're bullies, when they trample on elements of democracy, it makes me nervous. And then if they have a big win, like it looks like the Coalition Avenir will have tonight, and again, they look like they're leading in 92 ridings out of 125. Like there is no way to describe that other than a blowout. Like that's a huge win, but their voter percentage is slowly decreasing as the night goes by. So they will win a huge majority, but he only has 46% of the vote, and that's slowly ticking down, down, down. Here's my point. He will think everyone loves me. Everyone likes me. Everyone approves of me. I'm vindicated. Everything I did was correct. And that will make him more intransigent. That will make him less open, less democratic. And what worries me is that he's already showing some signs of authoritarianism. And I remember when you and your videographer, Guillaume Roy, went to a Coalition Avenir event. You were invited, you had the invitation, and he sent police to kick you out. And I'll ask Efron of our team to call up that video. And in some ways, I hate to show it because it's like that video we showed of you being harassed by the police in Quebec in the middle of the snow, bossing you around and telling you to walk this way or that way, and implying they would arrest you if you didn't. That really bothered me. But I think a lot of police did that during lockdowns in Toronto and in other cities too, Calgary for sure. But when you were kicked out of a political event by the premier for no reason other than you asked tough questions, that shows an authoritarian streak in the premier's office, which really irks me. And I think we have that video on standby here. I'd like to show it just because any instincts Francois Legault had about being a bully or pushing around journalists, I fear they're going to get worse now because his election win and his artificially large majority. Like I say, he's probably going to end up with just over 40% of the vote, but he's going to end up with more than 80% of the seats. I'm worried that'll go to his head. Are you guys ready to play that clip? Okay, here, take a look at this, Alexa.
Is to get rid of private agencies. I don't like private agencies. Moi, c'est important de le dire, là, le Québec, c'est un des endroits au monde où on est le plus accueillant, le plus ouvert. Et c'est important, il reste encore du travail à faire.
Notre politique a toujours été d'exclure Rebel News.
Pourquoi?
Merci beaucoup.
Et ça, c'est seulement la CAQ? On a besoin de votre badge, monsieur? C'est quoi votre numéro de badge? Listen to this report until the end. You won't be disappointed. On August 9, me and Guillaume Roy registered for the announcement of candidacy in Laval-des-Rapides for the election of October 3rd. Céline Eteyan, the candidate, has over 20 years of experience in national and international economic development. Director of International Corporate Affairs at the multinational Ubisoft since 2018. Since we are denied access to the media, as we saw in Drummondville last May 28-29, and at the event in Trois-Rivières 8 months ago, and also the event of Mr. Legault for the by-election in Marie-Victorin, this time we simply put our name on the list of participants. Journalists in Canada should be free to cover any political event. No membership card or other criteria was required for us to take part in this political event. It took a few minutes for us not only to be escorted from the venue by the police, but also to learn that the CAQ exclude Rebel News from the media that can take part in the political event in Quebec. Is it not that journalistic discrimination? None of the other media outlets that were there dare to raise their voice in opposition to this unjustified act. The police act with a lot of police enforcement and show us once again the politicized side of police officer. So here, Alexa for Rebel News, and I'm currently in Laval-des-Rapides because today Mr. Legault was supposed to show one of the new candidates to join for the next campaign. But we did subscribe, me and my colleague Guillaume, we subscribed on their website because, as you know, trying to send them message for being accredited as a media keep being denied without any reason. So we did well. We went to their website, subscribed, and we received our confirmation. We went there, and it took not even 1 minute that someone came to us and asked us why we are there and for who we are working. And not only they say that, no, they don't recognize Rebel News, they actually not take them in consideration, but they say as well that we need to leave right away, and if not, the police will come. So what happened, the police came to expose us from the event. But if you look a little bit of the image, the place was completely empty. So it's not really comparable with other event of the campaign that we saw with the Conservative Party of Quebec. But really interesting to see that they don't want Rebel News to be here, and they just choose what media they want to cover their event. And as you know, Mr. Legault say that he wants to fight against discrimination, but what he's doing is just polarization. Discrimination of journalism, discrimination on unvaccinated, discrimination against the people that speak English, the English Quebecer and allophone as well. So what is going on here? We have a premier that say, oh, we really need to do a change here in Quebec. We want to fight against discrimination, but it's actually all the opposite that he's doing. So you see it? Double face again, hypocritical premier.
Allô? Il faut donner notre nom. Alexandra Lavoie. Lavoie.
Pourquoi?
Parce que c'est c'est pas nouveau, là. C'est pas la première fois que cette situation-là survient.
C'est la première fois que je viens à un événement.
Je parle pas de vous spécifiquement.
Moi, j'en ai pas vu d'autres qui sont venus à celui de M. Legault. Là.
Dans tous les cas, vous allez quitter. Donc, soit c'est avec moi, vous allez le voir avec la sécurité. Puis moi, je veux pas en venir à là.
Mais moi, ce que je veux comprendre, c'est pourquoi qu'il y a une décision sur les médias.
C'est pour ça, quoi qu'il arrive, Rebel News, on n'accepte pas la présence de Rebel News.
Pourquoi vous n'acceptez pas la présence de Rebel News? Non, on est là en tant que... Pas pour...
C'est réservé aux membres, puis c'est réservé aux bénévoles.
Moi, ce que je veux savoir, pourquoi vous dites que Rebel News n'est pas accepté? Est-ce que vous voulez me l'expliquer? Moi, je vais vous suivre, mais je veux me le faire expliquer. Pourquoi Rebel News est refusé?
Tout simplement de
Pourquoi Rebel News est refusé?
Merci de quitter.
Non, veuillez me répondre, s'il vous plaît. J'ai droit à... Je suis accréditée en tant que média ici au Canada. Donc, pourquoi vous refusez?
Ça va être par ici.
Rebel News.
Merci.
Non, je vais vous le demander encore.
On va demander de...
Pourquoi vous ne voulez pas nous répondre? Hein? Pourquoi vous ne voulez pas? Combien de fois j'ai essayé d'être participante et on me dit qu'on ne m'accréditerait pas, puis monsieur a dit qu'il n'accréditera jamais Rebel News.
Notre politique a toujours été d'exclure Rebel News.
Pourquoi?
Merci beaucoup.
Et ça, c'est seulement la CAQ?
Je vous demanderai de quitter.
Et ça, c'est seulement la CAQ?
Je vous demanderai de quitter. S'il vous plaît. Merci. Je vous demanderai de quitter.
Mais je vais me demander, c'est la CAQ qui a décidé?
Je vous ai répondu.
Non.
Nous excluons Rebel News. Merci de quitter.
Bon, parce que ce que vous faites en ce moment, c'est de la discrimination de journalisme.
Ils ont accepté. C'est un peu leur problème, là, en même temps. Il n'y a pas de problème. Pas besoin de main.
Vous n'avez pas le droit de me toucher de toute manière.
Plusieurs fois, ça fait 10 fois qu'on
Non,
demande de
vous,
quitter.
c'est la première fois.
Oui, on quitte, là. On est en mouvement, là. On quitte. On est en mouvement. Vos badges, c'est quoi, M. Martel?
Continuez à quitter, la sortie est pas encore là. La sortie est là. C'est pas encore sorti. Continuez à sortir.
On a besoin de votre badge, monsieur?
Continuez à sortir.
C'est quoi votre numéro de badge? 269. Martin, vous n'avez pas le droit de me toucher, sinon je peux vous poursuivre.
Vous êtes expulsé.
Vous n'avez pas le droit de me toucher. Non, vous ne pouvez pas me toucher. Vous n'avez pas le droit de me toucher. C'est quoi votre badge?
993, ça fait reculez. Puis qu'est-ce qui me permettrait de vous arrêter?
Ben là, en ce moment, on quitte. Fait que là, en ce moment, vous faites juste montrer du pouvoir policier.
Vous quittez pas, vous refusez.
Non,
je demandais.
Faites juste quitter, là.
Ben oui, ça sert à quoi? On se défend, je ne fais pas confiance. Tu m'as poussé avec deux mains. Je reculais pas. Ben oui, je reculais. Selon toi, je reculais pas, mais je m'en allais. On n'a pas besoin de me pousser.
Je vous ai pas poussé, je vous accompagne.
C'est de l'arrogance, monsieur.
C'est pas de l'arrogance, je suis très calme.
Tu es très calme. Tu marches quasiment ses pieds.
Ouais. Est-ce que vous voulez
C'est
pas
pas
vous
très, c'est pas très courtois.
À quel point, là, vous pouvez faire votre travail? Vous travaillez pour
Parce
les
que vous
citoyens,
êtes habitué de vous débarrasser des gens comme ça, tout bonnement.
On demande de vous expulser. Vous avez une image préconçue de la police, monsieur, qui est erronée.
On est là pour poser des questions en tant que journaliste. Et vous?
Vous avez une image préconçue de la police, monsieur, qui est erronée. Vous nous mettez tous dans le même panier, c'est de l'ignorance.
Vous avez une image préconçue de la police, monsieur, qui est erronée. Vous nous mettez tous dans le même panier, c'est de l'ignorance. Vous avez une image préconçue de la police, monsieur, qui est erronée. Vous nous mettez tous dans le même panier, c'est de l'ignorance.
Je peux filmer toute la journée, mais tu filmes pas proche des policiers. Va filmer là-bas.
Toi, tu peux me filmer aussi. C'est quoi? Hey!
Tu t'en vas là-bas.
Excusez, mon véhicule, il est là.
On va demander de quitter le stationnement qui est également privé, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, on comprend que c'est privé, mais
Exactement.
faut nous laisser.
Ouais, mais là, pouvez-vous vous reculer pour qu'il rentre dans son char? Merci. Intimidation 101, on pourrait s'en passer. Merci.
En passant, on est inscrits sur la liste. Hein. C'est à eux de se démêler.
Je comprends. Mais à partir du moment où vous êtes expulsé, puis c'est un événement privé, puis qu'on a une demande d'assistance, nous, on a
Oui, mais on est sur la liste. Pourquoi qu'ils nous ont acceptés?
Ils n'ont pas besoin de fournir une raison, c'est privé, monsieur.
Bah, c'est ça.
Ben, c'est comme ça.
On est sur la
C'est
liste.
comme si vous rentrez chez moi, ça fait plus mon affaire, je peux demander à la police pour vous
Mais
évincer.
vous autres, la police, vous n'avez pas besoin de toute façon de mandat. On l'a vu pendant la pandémie, vous rentrez chez les gens
C'est un
comme
autre
ça,
débat, on en reparlera, monsieur.
sans mandat.
Beau. Il va falloir quitter maintenant.
Lâchez-le! Lâchez-le! Lâchez-le!
How do you feel about how Bill 21 and Bill 96 are affecting Quebec's capacity to attract international workers? Do you think it's good or bad for business?
I think we need to see the plus in Bill 21 and 96 in particular. I think the French language is super important. I think it's crucial to defend it, protect it, promote it. I think it's a plus for everyone to know French, speak French, use French for Anglophones, allophones.
Watching that video of Legault's staff saying we don't talk to Rebel News and having the police push you out so aggressively and abusively makes me furious. And to see that mixed with other footage of police brutality, especially that atrocious police action in Gatineau, where they went into a house with no search warrant and were physically pulling people out. That was one of the worst moments in the entire lockdown for me. And my point for showing that was not to embarrass you. You, as always, were brilliant. You were brave, but you were not provocative. You kept calm. You asked good questions. You made them look poor. It was to show that that's how Legault and his party was before. If they get a big majority now, I think he's going to be even worse. It looks like things are busy there, Alexa, that there's a big, busy crowd there. I didn't mean to go live again with you when there was a crowd around you, but watching the mistreatment of you and Guillaume, our cameraman, makes me worry that now that Francois Legault has an even bigger majority, he'll think he can be even tougher and more brutal, because who's going to stop him? That's what worries me.
Well, as you know, like Mr. Legault at the beginning, I remember a couple of mandates before, he was using, all the media as Moralive, as small radio, to be shown everywhere, okay? And now he's not even going in this media anymore. He's not talking to them anymore. It's the same for revenue. Just now I have all my media that I give money to actually paint a really nice coverage of myself. And so I'm excluding every media that I'm not agreeing with them in the painting. And now it would just do whatever you want. He's an arrogant person, opportunist. And unfortunately, I think we will have him for 4 more years in Quebec.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Eric Duhem can take that time to build up. I was just looking at the Quebec polling, the CBC results for the Quebec election. And if you can put that on the screen for a second, the CBC page, and the only reason I would use that is that they break it down between elected and leading, and it's in English. So, as you can see, Legault is now beneath 44%. Remember, he was over 50% for a while there, but as the votes are counted, and actually I should tell you, only 7,000 polls out of 21,000 have been counted. So only 1/3 of the ballots have been counted yet. I'm not saying that the trend will change, but Legault is now down to 43.9%, still a win, and I'm not taking that away from him. But with that 43.9%, he has 92 seats. So like I say, for every percent he gets, he has more than 2 seats. And all the opposition combined has 56%, but they only have 32 seats amongst them, or 33 seats, 32. So he has the illusion of a massive majority, but in fact he's at 43.9%. I don't know. I'm not going to make it 43.8. It just dipped down. I'm not going to make that point again because I've made it about 5 times tonight. But I'm just saying that a win is a win, and you win a riding, you win a riding. The rules of the game are the rules of the game. No point pouting about them. But they have artificially magnified his win. Most Quebecers did not vote for him, and in fact, as the night goes on, the percentage seems to be falling. Maybe I'm just crying sour grapes a little bit here, Alexa. What do you think?
Well, he promised that it would change the scrutiny of the election. He actually promised that it would change how the election is working for making more fair, to do it demographically instead of regionally. And we can see it, like, he's winning because he gets the biggest part of the population, the elderly. As you know, in Quebec, the population is getting more and more old. And so the biggest portion of the population is the elderly people. So the elderly are pursued that Mr. Legault saved their lives. And of course, he promised $2,000 to the 70 years old and more. So my point is, we should stop that politicians can promise money from the taxpayer before elections, because that can change a lot in election campaigns. And we can see it, like a lot of people that I know personally, they heard all the time, like at their job or in their neighbor, the $500 that he promised for the inflation and the $2,000 that he promised for the 70 years old and more. I just think that is unfair. Paying for having more votes is actually anti-democratic.
Well, that's the age-old way of politicians running, isn't it? They always make promises. Now, I want to ask you for your advice on our coverage. I think we know how the night is going to end in the main. I think we know that the CAQ party of Legault is going to win a majority, even though the percentage of his vote declines. I see CBC now projects he'll have 94 seats, and that could grow. To me, really, the only question is, will the Conservative Party of Quebec get on the board at all? Will they get even one MNA? And I don't know the answer to that. But I think that we know how it's going to end. In fact, over an hour ago, CBC and others called it as a majority for the CAQ. Do you think we should stick around and cover it more? Is there a chance that Eric Duhem will present, or do you think that he will not be coming into the room for quite a while? I mean, I've enjoyed covering this election, even though the result is not what I had hoped, and I appreciate you joining us from the office, from the election night campaign room of the Conservative Party. Do you think we should stick around? Do you think there's a chance that, for example, Duhem will make an appearance, or do you think that we should call it a night and give people an update tomorrow? I'm delighted that you've made the effort to go there. Just give us some guidance on should we continue running the live stream now that we know pretty much how the night's going to end.
Well, we know that how the night's going to end. We know that just when we were showing the report, some people were shouting. So I was like, okay, what's going on? And we see that La Pelletrie, one of the riding of Quebec, you have a big chance that the Conservative Party will break through that riding because it's way in advance with, I think, when I looked last time, it was 789. And I think the CAQ was around really close to 700. So it is in advance to other party. So we will see through the night if at least Mr. Duhem will have like a couple of seats. I expect maybe at least one or two. I will hope. If you want, we can end up that live stream. I can do an update tomorrow, maybe the live stream or doing an update. I can continue and cover through the night and interview some people here. What they expect and what is their hope and what they think about the coverage from the media, and as well what they think like about this election. I think tonight everybody knew that La CAQ will win tonight. It was obviously, especially because we know that a lot of people believe on the media coverage and they see Eric Duhem as an extremist and as they actually, the people who think that Eric Duhem is an extremist, they think that Poilievre is an extremist too.
Well, Alexa, I think that that's the right approach because although I'm enjoying spending the time with you and I'm enjoying watching your old reports, I feel that we are just killing time before two things, before Duhem makes an appearance and before the night is out, because you're right, the Conservative Party may punch through in one or two seats, but I think that that would probably be better covered by you on your own rather than tied to this live stream. But I've really enjoyed spending the time with you, and thank you very much for covering this election for us. Not only do I admire your work en français and in La Belle Province, but your courage during the lockdown, I'm reminded of it by watching those videos of you and how you kept your calm when those around you were losing their minds. You kept calm when the police were losing their minds. You kept calm when you were treated unfairly. You never lost your dignity. And I admire your self-control and your courage. And you've been such a delight to have on the Rebel team and such a great addition. So we're all grateful to you. So let me say thank you to you for joining the live stream. We will wrap it up now, and you can give us reports that we aired tomorrow to tidy up those little details on how the night goes, and to perhaps include some parts of Eric Duhem's speech tonight, which I would be very eager to hear.
I'm going to record his speech because he would probably show up really late when we know a little bit more what is going on. I expect him to probably show in maybe an hour because we will probably be here until 11:30, maybe same like midnight. But I will be there and I'm going to talk with some people, and I think it's the best thing to do. And just show the people how it is, the ambience and how the night is going on because, as you know, like unfortunately, I think Guillaume tried to go to La CAQ, but he's probably waiting outside.
Yeah. Well, the CAQ aren't very friendly to independent journalists, that's for sure. Well, listen, thank you, my friend, and we look forward to your reports tomorrow on how the night goes. Great to see you as always. Thanks for your journalistic contributions. And thank you to the 1,500, 1,600 people who were watching concurrently over the course of the night. I'm sure we had tens of thousands of people stop by. And I'm very proud that Rebel News is covering this election in Quebec, and that's thanks to you and Guillaume. So good night, my friend, and thank you. And I know you're not going to bed yet. You've got lots of work left to do. So thank you for that. And to all our viewers at home, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters in Toronto and Alexa Lavoie holding the fort in Quebec, to you at home, good night, and keep fighting for freedom.